A plan is a living, breathing document. It's not something that is just set in stone, because why do that? There's no reason for you to create a plan that you don't have a little wiggle room in.
Well, hey, welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. And today I am joined by my friend Sonia Narvaez, and we're so pumped to have you here. Thanks for tuning in. So, Sonia, why don't you take 30 seconds and introduce who you are, what you do, and then we'll jump right into the conversation.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thanks, Amanda, for having me here. And I want to apologize for the dogs barking in the background. They are, a lot of fun. But I am an operations nerd through and through. So I deal with, operations, your AOPs, your strategies, how do we do things in the business, on the inside of the business, client delivery, anything and everything related to moving the business forward, operations.
I love it. And so Sonia and I met in a business incubator that we're both a part of, and we both started geeking out on operations. So I had to invite her onto the show. So Sonia, what is it that actually got you into the whole subject of operations in the first place? How did you stumble into this arena?
Ooh, that is a great question, because it was entirely by accident. So the reason being that I did not even know the word operations growing up. I'm a first generation, so Spanish is my first language. And then, then I learned English in school, but, I never realized that what operations was, what it does in a company, how you do it in general, or what it could even mean, right?
What is it? For somebody who's not familiar, how would you describe it?
So the dictionary defines operations as everything and anything that moves the business forward. And so that's a wonderful, definition. I like to think of it as the how. How are we going to execute this? Or how are we going to do this? Or how are we going to look at this? How do we need to think about, that, it's really the how to making anything happen.
Got it. So when you're working with a business on how to make things work, what is it that you're bringing to the table as an operations specialist? So what is it that they ask you to do?
So, it's so funny because this question, we want to generalize it, and I want to say to you, anything that they have, that they might be stumped on right now, right? Because it is the how. It's that second part of, this visionary brain, this design. A lot of times, and I'm sure and we're full of them, entrepreneurs have a ton of innovative ideas. They want to do different things, but the how of it is where they're like, I don't even want to think about how it's going to be done using my company's resources, my company's people, me, you, everybody. So really, when they bring me in is when they, need someone to help them execute an idea, come up with a plan using their current business assets. Because a lot of times, as much as, you have an idea to maybe build a wonderful wall, if your budget is, $1,000 and that's the resources you have at your disposal right now, I'm not going to tell you to buy, a whole bunch of different bricks and all the these crazy different things that you can do with construction. Sorry, we're building a fence in my house, so I'm thinking about this. But so the different types of panels. Does that make sense? I guess.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
I know I can geek out, so I'm always asking.
Oh, don't hold back, because we got just a quick little episode here. Before we went live, we were talking about the magic of planning. So why don't you share with us, your top 3 wisdoms when it comes to doing a great job of planning, whether you're hiring somebody to help with operations or you're choosing to be more mindful of how you do things yourself. What are 3 things that you always keep in mind?
I always keep in mind that there is no perfect way to make a goal. I used to be very metrics, financials, all of those kind of numbers used to be the only way I'd make a goal. But I also realized that I have a friend, her name is Gwen, and I hope you have her on the show. She's amazing, and she's an operations person as well, but she calls them soul goals. And
Soul
really,
goals. Okay, you got to tell me more about that. What's that?
yeah, so basically it's a goal that's going to feed your soul, your inside, like keep you motivated. That's one thing that I never thought about, right? Like when you look at just a plain data point, a number, it's not as sexy and fun as a soul goal, right? And the soul goal may be something like, hey, say no more than I say yes, right? It could be boundaries, it could be anything that can help you grow in the direction that you want to grow so you can be, more of your aligned self.
Do you find that people are not setting soul goals? Like, do you think that a lot of people are really data driven, or are you seeing maybe the opposite sometimes? Because that's honestly what I see is more the opposite. They are not attaching a number to something.
Mm-hmm.
They have a vision, so they have an idea, an emotion usually that's attached to like their
Mm-hmm.
goal and what they really, really want to do. But getting that goal, I have this little saying, it's like really good to keep your head in the clouds, but your boots on the ground. And
I love
the whole thing that I'm trying to say there is pretty much like, yeah, you got to know what's aligned. You need to, I like that term soul goal. I think that that's really compelling. But in my experience, and maybe we're just hanging in different crowds, very possible because I work with a lot of new entrepreneurs, but very often they haven't made it a number. So when you see somebody who's like overly attached to a number, how does that look?
So a lot of times what happens is people will set a number and either they make it or they don't, right? They
Oh, like
usually
a
don't look
revenue
at the
target.
progress. Yes. They don't look at the progress we've made, the different things that have happened. They really, it doesn't feel
That I
like
see
you,
all the time. That I see
yes.
all the time is like, I actually had a private coaching call earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my clients was saying that she did a webinar and, it wasn't very good. And I said, well, how do you know? Like, what are you measuring? And she's like, well, I didn't get any clients. And I was like, okay. But there's so many things that happen before the client says yes. Right. So I
Yes.
think that's probably a little bit of what you're talking about is just being really fixated on like make a number of sales, have a certain amount of retention, have a certain amount of growth. But then there's no, now I see what you're saying. Like there's no like soul connection to the process.
Yeah. And, most people are like, oh, a year is nothing, right? A year is no time. But when you're in it day to day, a year feels like a lot. And so if you are establishing annual goals for your business, you're going to want something that's going to feed your soul, that's going to motivate you, and that's going to keep you going in those hard times. So, it's kind of like your vision, right? But I always think the issue with vision is it feels so far away. Like there is a reason that sometimes we create these grandiose, vivid visions of things, and, it's usually 1, 3, 5, 10 years, and it just feels like it's far away. Well, actually, it's usually number one, but,
And I love this because what you're making me think of is you're making me think of the difference between a goal and a wish, right?
yes,
And if you're
yes,
doing a vision board and you're wishing for this outcome,
yeah,
unless you can, I'm always teaching people, you've got to figure out what are the primary activities that are going to create the most opportunity for that to be successful. When you don't have the primary activities, then you don't know what is the cause and the effect that creates the result in your business. And you're doomed to repeat yourself week after week. Like one of the first things I teach is actually a weekly review because a lot of people, it's really hard to kind of line out a whole year. Like if you could really quickly, how do you guide somebody through thinking through an annual plan if they don't really already have good habits around weekly reviews, daily reviews, planners, calendars, and stuff like that?
yeah. I mean, I always tell people to just look back. First, it's always a look back. There's kind of really three things you need to do, which is, looking back, victories, challenges, learnings. And then you're kind of like, where am I now? What are my resources now? What was I able to accomplish in this last quarter? Let's look at that. And then what do I want to build either upon this? Because, I liked the outcomes and everything that happened this year, or do I need to pivot? Right. And so it's really, as long as you can start with some main themes for your year, that's going to start to help you think about, okay, is this in service of my theme? And then all of a sudden you're going through a lens of that. and you start to feel more comfortable being like, okay, cool. Now I feel that this is my theme. This does feel good. Let's actually create some structure around it.
I love it. So good. Well, when it comes to planning, I noticed that a lot of entrepreneurs kind of get themselves into the habit of reaction. So if we've got like this plan and we've nailed it out, we've got our themes, we know what we're supposed to do, what we're supposed to figure out. What about the unknowns, or what about the unaccounted fors, because it's so funny, because I think a lot of especially newer entrepreneurs are like, "Oh my God, my kid got sick." And I'm like, they do that. Like that's not a surprise, but it feels like a big disruption to a plan that they might have laid out. And then I think one of the more entrapping mindsets that I see people get into is like, well, the plan didn't work, so then I guess we're done. And they put more energy into explaining why the plan didn't work out than they do into reworking and recalibrating. So what would you recommend on that? Like if somebody sets like these best laid plans, they've done the math, they've got their soul in it, and then reality shows up.
So I like to ask myself two questions in that case. Where and why? So like, where were we, in the business, or, what, like potentially, well, three, I guess, what, where, and why, why could this have happened? Like, what were those things that maybe contributed to my deviation, or, my calculations being incorrect? Was it something that was needed? In which case, sometimes, I'm sure, like we have to get rid of things, and sometimes that means that, different type, like we now have to recalibrate, right? And I love that you use that word, by the way, because it really is that. While a plan is a living, breathing document, right? It's not something that is just set in stone, because why do that, right? Like there's no reason for you to create a plan that you don't have a little wiggle room in, right? That you yourself don't know how to be resourceful to make your goals happen, or to, follow your plan. So, that's one thing that I definitely think about.
I totally agree with that. I think a lot of people have desires but not intentions. So what I mean by that is they desire to make more money, or they desire to grow their business to a certain level, or they want to have this level of profitability, or they want to have this way that things that operate, or they want to be organized in a certain manner. They have these desires. And it's like this, I think what I've noticed is like everyone pretty much has the same desires. They want to be rich, they want to be loved, right? And they want to feel safe, and they want to be healthy, right? And if the thing that doesn't really set you apart is that desire, like of course you want to make more money, like obviously, like everybody wants that, right? The thing I notice is just that it's a special change when you add intentionality, and you have intentionality around your schedule, you have intentionality around your behavior, you have intentionality around your character decisions, right? Like there's all this intentionality that you can inject into what you do, how you do it, when you do it. And I'm so curious about that, because before we went live, you were talking a little bit about the power of habits. So can you talk to me a little bit about that? Like so let's say I've got my big old plan for my year, and it's themed out, it's got soul goals, right? I'm tapped into my desires. I got it all broken down. Okay, amazing, awesome. Actually, habits feel like one of the top fail points that I notice among entrepreneurs. What say you about that, and what would you do about it?
So I like to think about a lot of things in operations as habits, because we create these processes, right? And what's a process? It's a set of steps to complete something, or to have an action occur, have the desired outcome, basically, right? So when I, think about kind of where I'm trying to go, I really think about how and what is going to get me there. Like, how am I going to get there, and what is going to get me there? And so that isn't just like in my business, right? That is also in my personal life, because, for me, I very much, I act the same in my business or in my regular life. I'm very fluid and resourceful and flexible. And one of the things that a lot of people, forget to be is kind of like thinking about yourself as not just the business, but also, a person. And these people, regular in your day to day, you have these habits, and these habits are going to influence these outcomes as well. So I think that's, where operations really, we call it operations in business, we call it habits kind of in our personal life.
Well, that's so interesting. I love that. You're making me think about like so I'm a mom. I have four kids, and two of them are a little younger, and I've got my husband and everything, and my husband, he's amazing. Like, oh my God, he's so good. Like, not to gush or anything, but gonna gush for a sec because he made homemade soup today. Like, I ate homemade food for lunch, and I'm like, holy
That's
cow, I'm so lucky.
delicious.
And as the mother of the house, sometimes there's things that I notice. I'm like, gosh, I would love to have that at a higher standard. And so I'm the kind of gal that figures out, okay, for a family of six, what's the optimal number of laundry baskets that I need to own so that I can cycle my laundry appropriately? The answer is three, right? To get everything done in that period of time to that standard. And I think people are used to potentially like having habits around how you wash your dishes or how you clean your home or
How
how
you
you do
brush
your
your
grocery
teeth.
shopping,
Yeah, like how you
right?
brush your teeth on a regular
How
basis,
you brush
honestly.
your teeth. Exactly. And, I think sometimes though, when we want to invite something new into our life, we somewhat expect to just keep the old habits and keep everything the way it was. And actually, one of the things I really had to let go of as I was becoming more successful in business and I needed to be more focused is I was like, I gotta drop a little of the neuroticism around housework, right? Because I do have help to do it. I need to realize that it's like the dishes will be dishes again and the laundry will be laundry again. But when it comes to growing the business, I've got to put a new thing in place, right? So, Sonia, what is the best way for people to follow you?
So the best way to get to talk to me is through LinkedIn. And so you can message me there. And if you want to send over, I have a nice freebie that everybody can look at. It's kind of an operations checklist. It's pretty thorough. So even if you do a quarter of it, you'll get somewhere in your business. And if everybody just wants to message me checklist, I can send it over directly to them.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And we'll make sure to include your LinkedIn link and website links and all the good links in the show notes below, dear listener. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been a pleasure. And also, like, I cannot help but love talking about operations. So thank you for giving me a platform to do so.
Hey, my pleasure. And listener, if you enjoyed this, make sure you stop by and subscribe. So smash subscribe wherever you're listening. And also share this episode with 3 of your friends that might be interested in having more traction and more action in their business. And you know what really helps is if you take 30 seconds to leave a review or a comment wherever you happen to be watching or listening to this so that others can evaluate whether they want to check out this episode. We really appreciate your 30 seconds. It helps us to help a lot more people. All right, y'all, we'll see you in our next episode.